When you go shopping, you want to buy the item at the best price, right? But the thing is, real estate doesn't have a set price. You need to negotiate. The goal of every buyer is to buy the house at the lowest price, but still get the offer accepted. If you offer too high, you end up overpaying for the property. But if you offer too low, you run the risk of losing the deal. In this video, I want to go over some common scenarios that you'll face during real estate negotiations, as well as provide you some guidance on how you can navigate through these windy roads. If this is the first video of mine that you're watching, my name is Bin Chen. I'm an investor and real estate agent in New York City. My channel is going to be dedicated to financial education because that's one aspect of our education system that's very lacking today. I want to make videos about my personal experiences as well as give you tips and tricks on how to achieve financial independence. Now back to the video. Whether you're an investor or an agent, you want to have the edge in the negotiations. Now, to get the edge, you really need to be good at reading the situation. I know it's cliche, but knowledge and information is power. You need to be able to read the situation, gather as much information as you can, and use it for your own benefit. The best agent and investors are the people who are great at negotiation and problem solving. Now, the most common type of deals are hot deals, cold deals, lukewarm deals. No, I'm kidding, there's no lukewarm deals. Hot deals, cold deals, or off-market deals. So a hot deal is when a property goes on the market and it's below the market price, or it's in a great location, or something that has great potential. Basically, a hot deal is something that can draw a lot of people and they usually get multiple offers. A cold deal is when a property is priced well above the market price, or it just needs way too much work and a lot of people just aren't willing to do it. Cold deals usually sit on the market for months because no one wants to buy them. An off-market deal is exactly what it sounds like. It was sold off-market. It was never put on the MLS. These deals are usually done when people have relationships with each other and the seller already knows the buyer and is able to work something out. Once you've identified the type of deal that you're looking at, you want to enter the first stage of negotiations, which is the offer. To do well in the offer stage of the negotiation, you really need to familiarize yourself with the area that you're buying in. You want to either do a lot of research or hire a good buyer's agent in that area. If you familiarize yourself with the area that you're looking in, you're going to be able to know how much a certain type of property sells for in that area. So when a deal comes up and you're looking at it, you're going to be able to tell if it's a good deal or if it's completely overpriced. If you're a beginner, I would highly recommend that you get a skilled buyer's agent that works specifically in the area that you're looking at. The price of houses can vary drastically depending on where they are. Just one or two streets down can make a huge difference, especially in urban areas. If you walk down the block, you might be in a completely different school zone, or the use of the land changes and then now the property value increases or decreases based off of that. For example, in my area, on one side of Broadway, a two-family house can sell for $850,000 pretty easily. Now, if you walk 2 blocks down, that same house can only sell for $700,000. Just a 2-block difference makes such a huge difference. Once you're able to tell what the market value is in a certain area, you're going to be able to tell if the house you're looking at is a hot deal or a cold deal. Depending on what type of deal it is, you want to change your negotiation strategies. Now, if you're looking at a hot deal, you want to be aggressive because these deals usually go by quick. Just a couple months ago, there was a house that came on the market in my area that was selling for $700,000. Now, after looking at it, I knew the actual value of the house, what it's actually worth, is closer to $850,000. As soon as I saw the deal, which was maybe a minute after it was posted on the MLS, I contacted the real estate agent and set up a viewing for the next morning. The next morning, I was able to view the property, and I knew this was a great deal as soon as I saw it. So I put an offer at the asking price right there. I was probably the first person in that house and also the first person to make an offer. So I thought I could get it at the asking price. Now, this was me being really greedy because I didn't get the deal. I knew the house was worth way more than the listing price. I should have definitely went in way more aggressive. A few hours had passed and I didn't hear back from the agent, so I knew they were getting other offers. So at this point, I went back to the agent and increased my offer to $750,000, which was well above the asking price, but still much lower than what the actual value of the house was. Now this was me being greedy again. I really wanted this house at a low price so I can make more money. Hindsight is, I shouldn't have done that. This deal was way too hot. I should have included something in my offer called the escalation clause, which is basically you can submit your offer and then put in a statement stating that you will beat the next highest offer by a certain amount. If I were able to travel back in time, I should have put an offer in for $750,000 with an escalation clause stating that I'm willing to pay $1,000 above the highest bidder with a cap at $851,000. That would ensure that I would win this bidding war. Now, I would really only use this strategy if I really wanted the house. I knew it was a great deal. I loved the structure of the house itself, the location, and there were multiple other offers. The house itself ended up selling at around $800,000. Now, if I had put in the escalation clause and the seller's agent came back to me with the high offer being at $800,000, I would have bought that house at $801,000 in a heartbeat. Just send me the contract, I'll sign it right there, because that would have been still a great deal. If you've ever had a deal like that slip through your fingers, please leave a comment below and tell everyone about it. I would love to hear about your story. Now, say this property is a cold deal. It was placed on the market, but it was just way too overpriced. You still like the house, you like the area, you just don't like the price. Well, if it is actually overpriced, then it's not gonna sell and it's gonna sit on the market for maybe a couple months. So what you want to do is you want to speak to the agent regularly. You want to make sure that the agent knows that you are interested in the property, but just not at that price point. Some homeowners just put their house on the market and just shoot for the stars. The house is worth $600,000, but they want to list it at $800,000 just to see what happens. Once the property sits on the market for a certain amount of time, the seller realizes that, oh, it's not really worth this much. I need to lower the price so that I can actually sell it. Well, this actually becomes even worse for the seller, because once you drop the price, all the people who are looking at the house are now thinking, oh, if we wait a little longer, they're gonna drop the price even lower. So they just wait and wait and wait. Now that's where being in constant contact with the agent is very helpful, because the agent knows that you're interested in this house. The agent knows that you're a serious buyer because you've been talking to them for weeks or months. So when the seller is ready to drop the price, the agent is going to contact you first, because the agent knows that you are very interested and you're a serious buyer, instead of the other onlookers over there waiting for the price to drop even lower. That way you have a better chance of negotiating the price. Now, when the agent comes back to you, you want to come up with something to justify the price that you're willing to offer for it, even if it is much lower than what the asking price is. I've seen houses that are listed for $1.1 million that end up selling for $850,000. Now, a $250,000 decrease is huge. And that's because that house wasn't worth $1.1 million in the first place. Now, if that person had listed the price for $900,000, he would have had a better chance selling it for $900,000. But in the end, the person who stuck with it and spoke with the agent over and over again got the house at a discount for $850,000. Now, if this house is off market, all this negotiation stuff goes out the window, because anything can happen off market. In the past, I've worked with a contractor that told me this story about how he bought a house on his block for a fraction of the cost. He told me that he became very friendly with the neighbor. The neighbor was an elderly man and couldn't really do a lot of the yard work himself. So every single time it snowed or it was fall and the leaves are piling up on the lawn, the contractor would go and basically clean up the front of his house. Also, if there was any damage or anything broken in the house, he would go and fix it for free. He created a good relationship with that person. And once that person was unable to live in that house anymore, they moved to a nursing home and they ended up selling that house to the contractor for a fraction of the cost. Now that stuff happens all the time. Sometimes when people get old, they don't really have the need for the money anymore and they don't really need to get market value. So they just sell it to someone who's been making their life easier, that they have a great relationship with. For something like that, you don't really need to negotiate because it's all about relationship and you're also getting the property for much lower than the market value. Once you've submitted your offer, you just gotta hit the like button and your offer is gonna get accepted. Just kidding, but not really. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. I really appreciate it. Once an offer is accepted and the contract is signed, the buyer usually hires a home inspector to take a look at the house to see if there's anything wrong. The home inspector will usually come back to the buyer with a CVS receipt sized report of everything that was wrong with the property. I mean everything. They're usually very thorough and will write every single detail about everything that's wrong with the property. For instance, they might write something about, oh, one of the outlets on the second floor bedroom was not working, or something like that. There will be a lot of very minor, simple things that can be easily fixed, and hopefully there's no huge issues like, oh, the boiler is red tagged and can't be used or something. Now, depending on what the type of deal is, you want to approach this report differently. So if the deal is a hot deal, you really don't have much leverage because the buyer has other offers to fall back to if things don't work out with you. So unless the home inspection comes back with something crazy, like the roof is falling apart and you somehow didn't notice it when you looked at it, something that will cost a large amount of money, I wouldn't really stress the details. Like if some of the tiles need to be replaced or the outlet needs to be replaced or something, that's really not a big deal. Like if you spend another couple $100s fixing these minor things, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter because if the mortgage is $2,000 or $3,000 more, then you're really only paying about the same as a Netflix subscription. So it doesn't really make much of a difference. You don't really want to fight for those little things, especially if it's a hot deal. Now, if it's a cold deal and you know the seller has no other offers and it's been sitting on the market for months and they're very desperate to sell the house, then you have a lot of leverage. You can go to them and point out every single detail about everything that's wrong. The home inspector will generally give you a cost estimate on how much something would cost to fix. So you want to bring that up to the seller and try to get them to lower the price even if it's a little. You can always ask because they usually don't have another offer and they're willing to work with you. If you can get a $100, $200 deduction, every penny counts, right? Now, generally speaking, if the seller is willing to give you a deduction, you really want to ask for a closing credit. That means that the seller will give you a certain amount to go towards your closing costs when you're closing the deal. You don't want to have the seller decrease the selling price because if they decrease the selling price, then that affects the amount of mortgage that you can actually get for this property. So it's generally much better to take it as a closing credit, and if you don't need it in the end, you can always just use that money and pay the mortgage right there. You just get that choice as opposed to if you had just lowered the price. Now, off-market deals are very hard to generalize because there's so many different types. Now, on one end, it can be a flipper trying to buy a house that's literally falling apart and they have to rebuild the whole place. In that situation, it really depends on what other flippers are willing to pay and also how desperate the seller is. On the other end, it can be someone looking at a prime piece of land. The seller isn't really willing to sell it and the buyer needs to pay a premium to buy that piece of land. So there's way too many different scenarios for off-market deals. So in this video, when I'm talking about off-market deals, I'm really just talking about the ones where you have some sort of prior relationship, whether you've been helping that person for a while and they're your friend, or they're like a relative or something, and they're willing to sell it to you at a cheaper price because of your relationship and they like you. The last step of the negotiations comes when you get your appraisal back from the bank. Now, normally when you buy a house, you're likely going to get a mortgage. And if you get a mortgage, then the bank wants to have an appraisal. They want to make sure that the house is worth more than what they're lending you. Normally, the bank will lend you about 80% of the purchase price, so they want to make sure that the house is actually worth what you're saying it's worth, and if worse comes to worse, they can sell the house and recoup their 80%. The best case scenario is if you can get the appraisal to match or be very close to the actual accepted offer price. Now, during the appraisal process, you really want to meet with the appraiser at the house itself. You want to do your research and bring some paperwork about comparable sales in the neighborhood. You want to show the appraiser why you came up with this price. So if you can find maybe 2 or 3 houses in like a 5-block radius that are very similar to the house that you're trying to purchase, and then show them what they sold for, that can justify your price. You also want to walk through the house with the appraiser and point out all the good points of the house itself. That way, it'll increase your chances of the appraiser giving you a high valuation on the house. Now, if you have a hot deal, then you're likely not going to have any issues with the appraisal because the hot deals are priced right. Now, if you're looking at a cold deal and the appraisal comes up lower, and now the bank's not willing to lend you the amount that you need to purchase the house, you want to go back to the seller and tell them, look, this house is not worth what we agreed upon. Can you meet me somewhere, lower the price a little so I can actually get this mortgage and close? The seller will most likely be more than willing to work with you because for a cold deal, that house has already sat on the market for months and they just want to get it sold. Now, if the appraisal comes out drastically different and you know the appraisal must have made some sort of mistake, you don't really want to hound the seller to lower the price because of that. At the end of the day, once you've signed the contract, everyone should be kind of on the same team and just close the deal. So if there's a mistake in the appraisal, you want to point it out to the appraiser as soon as possible and try to get them to fix it. Once you've gone through these 3 stages of negotiations, you just gotta wait for your title company, your banker, as well as your lawyer to do their thing and get ready for the closing table. I hope this information was informative. Please hit the like button if you found this helpful. Please leave a comment down below if you have any questions or if you have any suggestions on what type of videos you want to see. And please hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos about real estate and financial information. Thank you so much.